Danny Segura for MMAJunkie.com. I'm joined by the pit master himself, John Hackleman. John, you're back in California. How are you doing? How was the Florida trip?
It was weird but great. I mean, it was weird because we've never done it that way before with all the um can I take a side note for a sec?
Sure.
When like I just said, we've never done it like that, or we've never done that before. And that's true, we haven't. But if you ever hear a girl say that to you in bed, she's always lying. Anyway, okay. So with that said, we've never done that before. It was kind of weird, the whole just the mask thing and the social this and social that and yada yada yada. Had to get a blood test and a nasal swab the first day I got in. Then every day they check your temperature. Not a big deal. Everybody was so professional. It ran so smooth. I gotta say, man, I've had my ups and downs with Dana in the past, but I think he's a fucking hero for what he's doing and the way he's doing it. I think he's not only a genius, I think he's a hero because I mean, he's going against the grain. Um, and I mean, a lot of people, are giving him friction, but he's doing it anyway. And he's not doing it for himself. He has so much money, he doesn't have to do this anymore. But he's looking out for the fighters, for the fans, for the martial arts world. And so I think he's a freaking hero. And I love the fact that he's doing this. And I love the way he's doing it. And his team is such a well-oiled machine. It runs so smoothly from the head doctor, Dr. Davidson, to everybody taking care of the fighters. It's unbelievable. I am so impressed with the whole situation. So it went really smooth, and I mean, making something like that run smoothly as they did is genius. So it was a good trip.
Yeah, certainly. So let's talk about, for those that don't know, I mean, you're mostly known for cornering Chuck and training Chuck for all these years. But you're also a trainer for Glover Teixeira, who picked up a huge win on Wednesday night, stopping Anthony Smith in the 5th round. Before we get into sort of what's next for him, and I have some questions about Glover and about his training. I do want to address the controversy right off the bat, just because I want to get that out of the way, because I do think it was very unfortunate, but I do think that, the storyline where Glover picked up a huge win, it should be that's what should be talked about more. But we have to do our job here and talk about the controversy. The fight was stopped fairly late. At least most people think that way. How did you see the stoppage from Anthony Smith's part, like as far as the referee stepping in and calling the fight?
I think the referee did a great job. First of all, I think I think there was times where it looked, stoppable, but people gotta remember, and I mean, I'm the stopper. I mean, everybody that knows me,
Yeah.
even the referees, I stop fights with my fighters very quickly, and too quickly, I think sometimes. So I mean, it doesn't just show caring for the fighters. Sometimes I fight to stop the fights quickly enough where my fighter probably would have recovered and maybe had a second chance. And sometimes that means double their purse because they didn't win. They don't get a win bonus. And sometimes it means taking them out of a title contention. So stopping the fight has a lot of ramifications. I stopped them too early, and I admit that. And my fighters know that. And if they have a problem with that, they can have someone else work the corner. But then there's like stopping it perfectly. And like, how many people do things perfectly? Sometimes it's going to air on a little too late. And then in my case, a lot of times it airs on too soon. So, I think watching it from the where I was watching it, my vantage point was Anthony Smith was still dangerous. He could have stopped it in the 3rd round, right? But then don't forget, Anthony Smith nailed Glover a couple times in the 4th round. So what if one of those punches could have easily knocked out a fighter? So if he stopped it in the 3rd, now he never would have had a chance to win in the 4th. So are you stopping it too soon or too late? I don't know. I wasn't in his corner, and I know this for a fact. I know Marc Montoya loves his fighters and treats them like family. So, but with that said, I would have stopped it, but that's not always the right way. Like I said, so all I know is I wasn't in his corner. I wasn't watching it like that. I was watching it thinking he's still dangerous till the
Mhm.
end
Right.
as Glover's corner man. So I didn't think it should have. I mean, I wouldn't have, thought anything was crazy. I heard about it and I watched some parts where I would have
Mhm.
stopped it, definitely. But like I said, then if I stopped it in the third, that took away his chance of winning it in the fourth, which he could have done. If that punch he landed would have come down just a little bit and hit Glover in the chin, it might have been over. So, I mean, people that say that, don't forget, there's people that, saying that Peterson stopped Dominick Cruz too early.
Yep.
So too early, too late. They're never going to be freaking happy. So I don't know. I'm not, I don't think it was, in my eyes, like I said, it wasn't too early or too late. It
Mhm.
was when it should have been. I would have stopped it, yes. But that doesn't mean it was right. I don't always do things right. So, and Marc Montoya loves his fighters just like I do. He just has a different way of training, and he has a different state of mind about that. It's
Mhm.
not better or worse. It's just different. And for everyone that's never cornered a fighter, then they really shouldn't talk, because it's like when my wife has her period. Like, I can't say, "How dare you have a bad mood and cramps?" I don't know. So if you
Right.
don't know what it feels like to be in the corner in a big high level fight like that, then you really have no room to talk.
Right, totally. Yeah, totally understand that, and I think that's a fair point. But then you have guys like Daniel Cormier, right, who's now an analyst and former champion at heavyweight, light heavyweight, someone that's very experienced
Yeah.
in MMA. Also, kind of share the same sentiments. I don't think the third round should have been stopped, or maybe the fourth, but going into the fifth, I feel like that's where people had most of the issues with the
Yeah.
lack of stoppage, where Anthony Smith, goes back to his corner, and it was clear that Glover was very dominant, and he tells his corner, "My teeth are falling out." And he goes back in the fifth and gets stopped about a little bit over a minute into the fifth. And I know, obviously, being a corner and a referee and a coach is a very difficult job. But were you surprised that he got sent out into the fifth? It
Well,
sounds like you're not.
no. Well, let's see. Okay, the teeth. First of all, I'm an emergency room nurse, so I'm an RN, an emergency room nurse, and if someone comes into the ER and they have a gunshot to the chest, we're gonna bring him right back, right in, right?
Mhm.
If he had a broken arm, I'm gonna bring him, I'm gonna bring him in. If a guy comes into the emergency room, waiting room, and we're busy, and he had some teeth knocked out, it's not a big deal.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna rush him in. And another thing is, Anthony Smith has veneers, and they come out all the time when he's training. So it's a common thing for Marc Montoya to see Anthony Smith losing his veneers during training, and they usually put him back in. So with that said, that's what Anthony Smith was talking about, and Marc Montoya is used to hearing that. So it's not like he didn't come back and say, "I can't see my eye, I can't see, or I can't breathe. I think I have a punctured lung." He said his veneers were coming out. That's not an emergency situation.
Mhm. Okay, fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as, so you think maybe the criticism that's been out there, from fighters, media, fans, do you think maybe it's a little bit unfair on Marc Montoya?
I think it's unfair in that they weren't there, but everybody has an opinion, and I think the opinion about Keith Peterson being opinionated about why he stopped it, I think that was wrong. I think he did a great stoppage, and if the referee stopped it at any point, I think it would have been a good point, a stoppage, and if Marc Montoya stopped it, I think that would have been a good stoppage. But the fact that the referee didn't feel like he should have stopped it either, and
Mhm.
Marc Montoya didn't, that adds a little bit extra credibility to that. But like I said, it's hard for me because my instinct isn't right all the time, and it is to stop fights way
Yeah.
too quickly. So I'm a bad one to ask because I really 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 am not a good person when it comes to cornering. That's probably why I'm not I don't have as many fighters as Marc, because I do stop them too early and I'm a little too soft on that. So I'm a hard one to say, but I mean, I'll tell you what, Anthony Smith doesn't think so. So,
Mhm.
I mean, you can't, that's right there. That's the best person to ask. And he doesn't think it was stopped. It should have been stopped until it was stopped. He thinks it was stopped just when it should have been.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if Anthony himself, who is very sharp right now, he's not like, he's not concussed. Um, he actually thinks the fight was stopped just when it should have been stopped. That's the only person that really matters at this point.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, it, certainly something to be said if if the fighter agrees with the corner and as well as the referee, maybe there's something there. But I guess just to put an end on that, and you probably could agree to this because you're notorious for you've said it many times before, like you hate seeing your guys take damage, and in a way you love the training, you love martial arts, but when it comes down to the actual fighting, sometimes you have reservations on that, and that's why sometimes you stop fights a bit early. But it was a little bit hard to watch Anthony Smith late in that round, get beat up by Glover, because at that point it seemed pretty dominant from Glover in the fifth. I agree. In the fourth and third, Anthony could have bounced back.
But I think watching the Ferguson fight was much harder to watch for me. I think that one was much harder, and that one, I mean, that one wasn't stopped, and I don't think it should have been, because sometimes there's just too much on the line, and a lot of people that say it should have been stopped. I don't know how much Anthony Smith made. Do you?
The money's the disclosed paydays are out there, but I don't know
Which
out of
is
the top
never
of my
right.
head.
It's never right. I'm telling you right now. I know that firsthand. It's never right.
Yeah.
But okay, I'm gonna say 200 grand. Okay, so that's 2 and 2, right? 200 grand to win, 200 grand to lose, right? Or 200 grand to show, 200 grand to win. So say he's making that. That might not. You always want to say, let's not put money in front of a life, and I agree with that. But I don't think he was ready to die. But that 200 grand, you could buy 2 houses somewhere for that, So that's a lot of money for a young guy building up his future and trying to raise his kids. That extra 200 grand sometimes can mean the difference between, buying a rental property and being set for the rest of your life and not. So people don't take that into consideration, because it's easy to say, hey, don't put money in front of a human life. He's not dead. And people are saying that now with the corona thing. Oh, you want to open your business sooner because you care about money more than human life. But in reality, there won't be any human life if I don't have money and I can't eat and I don't have a roof over my head. So it's all it's a complicated thing.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that everyone has their opinion, and I'm not disagreeing or agreeing. I'm just saying Anthony is the only person that matters when it comes to that. And Anthony himself thinks the fight was stopped when it should have been stopped. So
yeah, certainly, like you said, a very complicated situation, and it comes down to kind of like, I'm not gonna say priorities, but like kind of like your opinions and your thoughts on like a certain.
Everybody has opinion. Everybody has it. And if DC or Michael Bisping or John Anik were in the corner, they probably would have stopped it earlier. I don't know. I've seen Michael Bisping in some fucking wars where it looked like they should have been stopped and they weren't. And I don't hear his cornerman taking a shit ton of beating for it. So I don't know. I wasn't in his corner. I would have stopped it in the third round without a doubt. And so that's a little too early. So so that doesn't mean, that probably takes me out of the equation, because I would have erred on that. As soon as I saw that uppercut and a couple more ground and pound shots, the towel would have gone in. And I don't know, maybe the referee might have thrown it out. So it's going to be a controversy for a while. But I don't think it's just like I hate the fact that Keith Peterson is being dog for stopping that fight too early. I don't like him personally. I don't like Marc personally. Dragged through the coals for
Yeah.
stopping it too late because I know for a fact that Marc Montoya loves his fighters as much as any coach loves his fighters, and I know for a fact that Anthony Smith is fine with that stoppage. And pretty much at the end of the day, that's really all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly. People need to keep in mind is very complicated, and also, like you said, I don't know Marc personally, but I've seen him around at events and stuff, and he seems like a great person. So I don't think it speaks to his character and who he is as a person, right? But let's move on from that because I do think that's overshadowing a little bit of what we actually saw there, which was a fantastic performance by Glover Teixeira. First of all, you're there. I'm sure you obviously believe a lot in your fighter, but that was one of the best performances he's had in recent memory. Can you just kind of break down what you saw that night from Glover?
I think he has so many natural attributes, and he has such a hard work ethic. So the conditioning. He has our pit conditioning program, okay, and that's kind of well known. Joe Rogan's talked about. A lot of people talk about it.
Yeah.
But with that said, some guys seem to take it to an extreme, like Court McGee. Like sometimes they train a little too hard. Then when it comes fight time, that training has been left in the gym, or they don't have as much for the cage. Now Glover trains as hard. He does the old pit training. But now he's also doing some of that. I think it's called PI, like the UFC guys do.
Yep.
So they send him workouts to combine with ours, and it seems to work like a charm because instead of pushing, he tends to push a little too hard. But now with these PI guys, they've kind of kept him in check, and they give him different workouts for his other days. And they're shorter and more efficient than mine. Mine sometimes they're a little, they're old school, man. They're like fucking hit this for 1,000 times, shit like that. But Glover now has taken those two because he's a genius when it comes to working out and training. So he's taken those two and on his own, he's created like his own hybrid system of training. He's taken the pit old school training, this PI training, put them together. And you saw the results. That was the results of his conditioning.
Yeah, it was a great performance. So you think it mostly comes down to sort of the athletics aspect of the fighting rather than reinventing his skills or anything like that? Because we did see vintage Glover as far as precise boxing, good wrestling, good grappling.
No, that's just the conditioning part.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's why he's in such good condition. Like, that's him. That's him taking our system and then the PI system. He mixes it. He's in charge of his conditioning, and he's the genius behind that. The genius behind his power punching. I'll take some credit there, but the genius of his boxing, his new, he has like a great Tyson boxing system, which we came up with. I used to make him study videos of Mike Tyson all the time. But that head movement and that moving with the punches, that's his boxing coach, Fernelli Feliz. Fernelli Feliz, two of his sons are Golden Glove boxing champions, and they're heavyweights. They're like bigger than Glover. His 16-year-old son is bigger than Glover.
Jesus.
And his 21-year-old or 22-year-old son, he's like a 5-time New England Golden Glove champion, national Golden Glove champion. He's on the Dominican Olympic team, and he's a heavyweight, and he's a mover. He does not get hit, and he hits. So when he spars with Glover, Glover is catch, and his trainer, is working with him so much on his head movement, and his trainer is combining our power punching in with that. So I mean, that's to me that new Glover is a lot of that is attributed to Fernelli Feliz, his boxing trainer. His boxing trainer is phenomenal. And then comes his jiu-jitsu, right? He has John Nandar. I think his last name's Nandar. Nandar? But anyway, that's who like works with him on the wrestling. But his wrestling partner is Caio. You know, Caio Maganese, who's fought in the UFC,
Yep.
and he fights in Bellator, and he is an unbelievable grappler. So that's Glover's #1 grappling coach. That's why he has those beautiful takedowns and ground and pound is on point so much right now. So between the boxing and then the solid grappling bases he has there in Connecticut, his conditioning, which he does on his own, and then his good old fashioned, like the spinning back kick stuff we do with him. That combination just seems to hit right on, and I think that has reinvented his skill sets and his basically his overall MMA skills right now.
Yeah.
I wish we had this in the beginning more, but I mean, it is what it is. It's there now. So.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. It almost sounds like you're saying here, like the combination of all those things is we're seeing a Glover 2.0 right now.
Yeah, and I wish I could like take all credit for it. I can take some, and I love to take credit because I'm fucking conceited and I'm a narcissist. So I do admit that some of that base is mine. But don't forget, Glover lives in Connecticut now. So yeah, I came over there for a couple of days, maybe 3 or 4 or 5, maybe. But the most, the majority of his camp, he's training with, Finelli, John Nandar, and Caio. He doesn't have a lot of training partners, but that's all he needs. That kind of boxing right there, Finelli's son, that's all he needs right there with all his stand-up. And Finelli's son is such a great training partner. Glover takes him down sometimes. He's a boxer, a straight boxer. Throws some spinning back kicks at him and shit like that. And Fernandito is he's like an unbelievable sparring partner to Glover, and that's all the stand-up he needs. I mean, he has everything there, and then the grappling with Caio and John, that's all he needs. And then he comes back to his old school conditioning with that PI, and it is Glover 2.0. And I think a huge percentage of that is his new grappling partners, his boxing coach and boxing sparring partner, and his own conditioning.
Yeah.
So I can only take like this much credit.
Okay, fair and very, very modest of you to throw all those things out there. And what's up? That much of credit?
I'll take this much credit.
Okay, fair. So, but he's in a super interesting spot right now because he's 40 years old. But that fight, he's looked amazing. He looked amazing in that last performance. 4-fight win streak, top to the win over Smith, who recently challenged for the title. Do you think Glover can make a title run here and challenge for gold once again?
Yeah, I think he can. I think he do whatever he wants, man. I don't see many guys beating him right now. I definitely, I'm not gonna name any names, but I can think of a couple of guys that have beat him that would not beat him right now. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to call anyone out, but just think of some of his last losses, and I don't think they would be losses. I don't think there would have been losses Wednesday night.
Yeah. And do you think would you like to see him fight for the title next, or perhaps get a title eliminator bout? Like, what do you think should happen with Glover next?
Man, that's like I said, Dana and the matchmakers are doing such a great job. I just want to help him get ready mentally and physically. And to me, the sky's the limit. He is 40 years old. He's done really well for himself. He's actually planned for his future, and he lives a very good life. And I would like to see him get a few more paydays and a few more fights. And he loves to fight. I mean, he's like partying the night before the fight, not alcohol, not that kind of partying, just hanging out with us. And he's so happy. He's the life of the party, and he's joking around. He's telling us how much he loves his life, and he does. He's in the corner, in the dressing room, we're hanging out. He loves this. So he might be 40, but 40 is the new 26. Mm-hmm. So I have a feeling he has a few more, especially the way he takes care of his body. I'm 60, so he has a few more years left in him. I can guarantee you that, because I was still fighting at that age, and I never took care of myself the way Glover did. So I see Glover I see Glover sticking around for whatever he wants to do right now.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And obviously, the man at the top of the division right now is John Jones, who Glover fought a few years back. But since that fight, some would say, experts would say that John Jones' style has changed, and perhaps he doesn't have the same fighting style that he did back then. Would a rematch between Glover and Jones look different today in 2020 or 2021?
Yeah, I don't know much about John Jones. Yeah, I wouldn't be as interested in that fight for a lot of reasons, but I definitely see a different fight, coming, folding out or
Mhm.
laying out. What do you say? Out something
Unfolding, maybe.
unfolding. Yeah,
Yeah.
I see a different fight definitely, but that fight wouldn't interest me as much as a couple other guys out there.
Hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
just for a lot of reasons. For a lot of reasons.
Yeah, for sure. And as far as outside from Glover, any other fighters that maybe we should look out for that you're currently training? I know you don't have like a huge gym as far as like having a bunch of fighters together and stuff like that. So what's going on with you lately?
Just I'm just trying to run the gym. Mainly it's by Zoom and interactive video now with all the Corona
Yeah.
hysteria going on. Um, so I'm learning some new ways of doing that. I have a mentor helping me with that, and that's really unfolding. Um, but I do have a fight team. I have this girl named Gabby Lopez that fucking hits like a guy, and it's like holy shit. I see her climbing up the ranks. She's really tiny. Like I think she I think she fights at 115, but she
Hmm.
walks around at like 108. Um, and then I got the two Isaiahs. Isaiah Rocha, big brother, who's a phenom, and he's been with me since he's 4 years old. He's 23 or something now. He's making his way up the ladder. And then I got Isaiah Hughes, who's just a big corn-fed, really skilled, and they're equal. They're equally skilled at grappling, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, striking, and conditioning because they've been with me. They've been with me since they were 4 and 6 years old. So I got them. I got Gabby. I got Antonio Benuelos as the team captain. So
Hmm.
Antonio Benuelos, fought in the UFC,
Yeah.
WC,
WC. Yep.
Strike Force. He's a top, wrestler in college. So he's the team captain. So them having him as their immediate mentor is gold. It's like fucking gold, and he's such a good team captain. He does a lot more of the work with the team than I do. I train them like three days out of the week, but he does the rest of the work. And so, I mean, to be honest, like a lot of their base is mine, but the way that they're progressing, like Glover, the way he's progressing, that's the new guys on board. So I'm really happy to see that because man, I don't mind. I do not mind passing the torch.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's great to hear. That the gym, is doing well even within these times, which is so many
Yeah.
coaches and people have said how difficult it is to. I mean, it's difficult to do anything right now, but certainly people are finding ways. So I'm glad that that's going on. I appreciate the time. Congrats on that victory. I think it was a fantastic victory. I think despite a little bit of the controversy that's going around, I think people do realize that a new Glover's out there and are
Yeah.
acknowledging his success. So congrats on that.
Did you hear about what they said about Keith Peterson that he was drinking or
Yeah,
something?
yeah. So Dominick Cruz.
Yeah, you did, but you
Mhm.
said that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but you got to realize something. And I'm a registered nurse. I worked in the ER. Now, when you have impaired smelling, like you smell things that aren't there, the most common reason for that, the most common cause for that is an acute brain injury. So it's called olfactory hallucination.
Mhm.
Sometimes when people get hit really hard or kneed really hard, right? They start smelling things that aren't there, like maybe beer or alcohol. So that could be an explanation. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah,
He did
certainly that
get
was
kneed
interesting.
pretty
I don't know if
hard.
you want to talk about that a little bit before we got a couple of minutes to talk about that. Because Keith Peterson, yeah, so Dominick Cruz got stopped by Henry Cejudo in the second with a knee, then followed up with ground and pound. Some are saying it was a bit early, the stoppage. Then Cruz comes out and says that, you know, he smelled, Keith Peterson smelled like cigarettes and alcohol. And that's kind of, you know, brought on some speculation on him and some controversy.
But yeah, yeah, and that was wrong of him to do.
Yeah.
Because if he smelled that, he would have smelled it in the dressing room right before when Keith Peterson comes in and gives them a pre-fight, the referee meeting where they're this far apart and he's talking to his face. So he would have smelled it then, unless Keith Peterson, between talking to him in the dressing room and going out to the cage, would he tank down a fucking, a thing of alcohol or
Right.
whiskey or whatever? That's absurd. And to throw in cigarettes, that kind of kills his argument, because cigarettes, that's not illegal. He could be smoking right before he goes in the cage. It doesn't matter. That's not affecting his refereeing at all. So just to say that, you could tell he was just trying for a zinger, a 1-2, to make it sound better. If it was alcohol he was worried about and a bad judgment, that's only alcohol. It has nothing to do with cigarettes. He would have said, I smell alcohol on his breath. But throwing in cigarettes, you could tell he was just trying to diminish Keith Peterson's reputation or put him down. Why bring in cigarettes? That's like saying, yeah, I smelled chocolate and alcohol. Why bring in cigarettes? It's because there was neither, not both, but neither. And like I said, it's, I used to be a registered nurse, and a lot of people, when they get hit really hard, they smell things that aren't there. And like I said, they call it olfactory hallucinations. So he got a concussion. I mean, no one in the world would have denied that. He had a concussion when he got kneed. You could tell by his lack of balance, his the way his legs worked or didn't work, and the way he fell. That's from a concussion. That's called a concussion. A concussion is a brain injury. And so for him to smell things that aren't there, then that's the number one cause of that is a concussion or a brain injury. I'm surprised he didn't say, I smelled my mom's home cooking too. But I think it was a rude thing to say, a very, accusing someone of that is like, and something you can't take back or they can't take it away. And it always puts it in people's minds. It's like when people say, oh, the guy was a child molester. Even if he wasn't, now that's always in people's minds. So it's a terrible, a terrible thing to say. So,
Yeah.
oh wait.
Yeah, your video cut off, but we can still hear you. And I guess, yeah, that's, same issues with like USADA, right? That's one of the reasons why they stopped disclosing like a potential violation rather than they just wait out and announce whether there was actually an actual violation or not to the USADA protocols. But I appreciate your insight on that. Definitely very interesting. Another controversial thing that happened in this trio of events. Again, like I said, fantastic performance with Glover. So congrats to you, the whole team as well, everyone you mentioned, and Glover as well. And I appreciate the time for the interview.
I'm sorry about that. I missed that. What was that?
Oh, no, that I said that I appreciate the insight on everything. And also congrats on the team victory. And also
thank
you
you,
being
man.
very
Yeah.
modest as well and giving credit to everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're my age, honestly, I do have a big ego, and I know that I'm responsible for a lot of things for a lot of people like Chuck and Glover and, my gym and stuff like that. But I love to pass the torch right now, man. And when I see a guy like, Fernelli and Kyle and, when I see them, just how good they are, man, I love, and I feel like, I had something maybe to do with it, maybe not, but I don't know. I love to pass the torch and put where credit is due. And I hate to see people dogged when they shouldn't be dogged. And I hate for see people's reputations to be tarnished when they shouldn't be tarnished. There's too many things that we really should tarnish people on, that I don't like to see people like Marc Montoya or Keith Peterson, be freaking, just dragged through the coals or the mud like this. So that's it.
I appreciate the time, John. Have a good rest of your day. and keep
Thank you, brother.
keep doing your thing, man.
Doing so. Keep getting old. Thanks.